Hello everyone. For those of you who know who I am, hi, welcome back to the channel. And number two, for those of you who don't know who I am, I'm the Reverend Godfather, main host and frontman for the Long Coat Mafia podcast. Links to that podcast are down below in the description, along with our other social media outlets, so you can find out more about us and check us out. So, let us get into it. I want to make a longer video in regards to the TikTok I am going to be posting as part of this video. I want y'all to say this right now. Do not send any, if you're coming in from Farscape YouTube, Babylon 5 YouTube, or whatever, Star Trek YouTube, do not give this woman any hate. Do not. Please do not give her any hate whatsoever. Matter of fact, give her a loads of love. And follow her and everything else. I'll try to put a link to her TikTok down below. It's just I want to go into a little bit more as to why she might be wrong in some aspects and why she might be... Well, let me just say this. Before I share the TikTok that she did in its entirety. It's only about a minute long. But that is just... The reason is because where she's right is that I'll get into it, but she has a lot of right points. So let me just say that she has a lot of right points, but she's got a few wrong points, and I'll get into that on the other side of the TikTok. Let me just say, here's the TikTok. Show her some love. If you want to, if you like what you see on her channel on TikTok, please hit that follow button for her, just like we ask you to hit the subscribe button here if you like the content we put out here on this channel. So here is that video.
Let's do this. The Sci-Fi Channel original series Farscape, frequently compared to the mega cult classic Firefly. They aired roughly at the same time and have a motley crew that largely consists of anti-heroes as much as heroes, whole thing. And true, Firefly is a beautiful little space opera nugget that never got to see its full potential thanks to early cancellation by Fox. But even leaving aside the problematic elements of Firefly, which we could go into, there is a greatness to Farscape that needs to get named. The brilliant puppetry courtesy of the Jim Henson Creature Workshop. The fact that Farscape was the show that was the original anti-Star Trek that paved the way for the Fireflies and the BSGs in that gritty era of space opera in the early 2000s. We could go on about how it's trauma-informed and it's a show that's like about a main character with very clear PTSD. It plays with gender and it's a critique of toxic masculinity and American exceptionalism. But I submit my final argument that is just Claudia Black and everything that is the radiant Aaron Sun.
Welcome back, everybody. It's a new day, so let's get this video finished. So I hope you enjoyed that minute-long TikTok video, and let me explain why she's right and where she's right, but maybe for the wrong reasons, and where she's wrong. Like I said, she brought up a lot of great points, great topics. I hope you do find her TikTok channel and follow her and watch her content and enjoy her content. But before I go into why Farscape and Babylon 5 kind of changed the game, let me give a lot of you some context, because she seems younger than I am. To admit my age, I am 46, going to be 47 next year. And so therefore, I'm a Gen Xer, so I'm a mid to late Gen Xer. Boomers who might watch this video might understand, some millennials might understand, but Gen Z will not understand. So let me give you some context, which is my podcast. One of my podcast's favorite words is context. And that being is the one, the only independent TV stations. I know a lot of you stream, a lot of you, let me adjust this real quick so you get better sound from me, and that is independent stations, TV stations. There is no really, don't think there's that many independent TV stations around the United States right now. If you do have an independent, I'm talking one that's not associated with any network. I'm talking CW, NBC, ABC, CBS, or Fox. I'm not talking, I'm talking one that's pure independent, has no affiliation. Back in like the 70s and 80s and even in the 90s, there were loads of independent stations out there from all across the United States. And what these stations did, they might have had the only original content they might have had was news, like evening news or morning news or maybe some sort of morning talk show. But beyond that, they didn't have any of their own content. So what they do to fill the day and the week is get syndicated TV shows. And what that normally is think classic TV, like, or even modern TV, meaning they would get something like NCIS or Law and Order, or reruns of these shows, reruns of like Gilligan's Island and Lassie and Lost in Space and stuff like that to fill their airtime. And did people come and watch this stuff? Yeah. They even aired old episodes of. This is where Star Trek comes in. This is where a lot of folks discovered Star Trek, including my generation and a lot of the kids that are, or I won't say kids, a lot of folks that are younger than I am. This is where they found Star Trek, the original series. And that being said, because Star Trek, the original series, with William Shatner, Leonard Nimoy, DeFrost Kelly, and everybody else was in that show. We discovered this with syndication, and with it, Star Trek was the juggernaut, or became the juggernaut. And in '87, I think it was, maybe a little bit later, The Next Generation came out, aired in syndication. And a lot of independent stations picked this show up because Star Trek, it was name brand. It brought people to their network. And it brought ratings to their network because Star Trek was the name to be. And in the late 80s, I'm talking about 90, 91, early 90s, late 80s, like 88, 89, and 90s, there may have been some original independent content that started to come up as syndication. For those of you wondering, I'm going to use like Babylon 5, Hercules, Xena. Beyond that, I think Precinct 56, I think was the name of the show, and there was a few others that tried during this time, but failed due to the fact that some of these programs didn't come out during the day. These were, like, I remember, I think, we'll go to Precinct 56. If I'm wrong, fans of the show, if I'm wrong, please put it in the comments down below. At least when I saw the show, it was airing at like 2 a.m. And who's going to watch a show? The show, from what I remember, was interesting and kind of good. But it kind of got canceled and didn't kind of get that ratings ball going because, again, if it was airing at 2 a.m. in a lot of areas, in a lot of markets, it didn't gain that audience. And again, this was pre-internet, or the internet was just starting to become popular with AOL and I should say America Online and other places, independent ISPs at the time. But the one that did take on and seem to, because this is where she's wrong, take on Star Trek and kind of succeed is in the late 90s. I want to say maybe 96, 97 is when a little thing, this is when pretty much Babylon 5 premiered. You had the pilot, which kind of which was the diamond in the rough, but it got paired with, I think, three other shows at the time to make up Primetime Entertainment Network, PTEN. And those shows during that time, along with Babylon 5, was Kung Fu: The Legend Continues and Time Tracks. And these shows were kind of like this, hey, we got these. It was a network, but not a network. And a lot of these independent stations gave a chance to these three shows. And it was like one night a week. I think it wasn't, you don't want to say it was a fledgling network, but it kind of was. But that was the point. They brought something to the table. And the one that caught on was Babylon 5. Kung Fu, I think both Kung Fu: The Legend Continues, which was a sequel slash reboot of the original Kung Fu, and it both starred David Carradine. And they, that Kung Fu: The Legend Continues and Time Tracks, I think both lasted 2 seasons. So they were kind of successful, but they didn't really catch on. But the leader was Babylon 5. And fans, it blew up. Once PTEN, Primetime Entertainment Network, kind of fizzled out for the most part, Babylon 5 continued. It got picked up. It ran. And as I said in my TikTok, during this time, what was being aired was Star Trek DS9. And for those of you who are not familiar with the legend, I'll say legend, or the alleged story, another one of my podcast's favorite words, is the story behind Babylon 5 and DS9 was that J. Michael Straczynski, or JMS, I'm going to say that because I'm going to mispronounce his last name, went to Paramount and CBS to kind of pitch Babylon 5. And they pretty much said, we're not interested at this time, and so forth and so on. But a few years later, we got Star Trek DS9, and it had a lot of the same elements that Babylon 5 had. And during this time, Babylon 5 was coming out. I think it might have been a year or two into DS9's run. Again, I think even at that time, DS9 was syndicated. So during this time, for a good portion of Babylon 5's and DS9's career, the whole aspect of Star Trek versus Star Wars took a step back, and it was Star Trek DS9 versus Babylon 5. Meaning you saw a lot of elements, sometimes a lot of elements that were happening in Babylon 5 were happening, then all of a sudden, within a week or two or a month, something similar was happening on DS9, and sometimes maybe a little bit, again, during this time, you saw Worf get married and have a wedding, which was going to happen on Babylon 5, but DS9 wanted to have it first. So they could say, hey, look, Babylon 5 is copying off of us. And once that word got to Babylon 5 and the creators and the writers, so they decided, oh, we're not going to do that. We're just going to kind of gloss over it and do our own thing. So it was that rivalry, and during this time you had the immersiveness of America Online and ISPs coming out. So you had, with all these forums, you had a way of kind of a baseline of fans kind of spreading the word, because like there'd be these folks like, have you been seeing, especially in this time, have you been watching Babylon 5? What's Babylon 5? And all these small clips and photos and sound clips and fonts and stuff were coming out. And what also happened was, during this time, one of the stories I remember during this time was that JMS was kind of telling the lawyers kind of back off a little bit, because what was happening is, during this time, Star Trek was, if you put out a font that was any way remotely similar to Star Trek's font, they'd go after you for, like, cease and desist, don't do it. Photos and anything like that, it was cease and desist. and they were like clamping down. You do this again, we're going to sue you for copyright infringement and all that. And what the story I was told was JMS was like, ease back, ease back, ease back. Don't go after, these folks sharing images, sharing sound clips and video clips and everything else, because it's helping us get into new markets and in essence do a lot of our legwork for us. So that that was one of the things, and because of this, they kind of, whether Babylon 5 is a good show or not, I think it's a good show. I'm a fan. I can't wait for the reboot. But it's the aspect of they kind of carved their way for the aspect of a lot of the other stuff that was happening. And during this time, Hercules was, at this point, it was not a series yet. Babylon 5 was a primetime show, meaning it aired sometimes between 8 and 9 o'clock, or in around that 8 and 9 o'clock time frame, or 7, I'll say this, 7 to 10, that time frame. Hercules was coming out as it started out with like 3 or 4, maybe 5 movies. These were Saturday afternoon movies, and they were hit. Somehow, from what I heard during this time, they were hits in the independent market, and they were mostly Saturday afternoon, or if not Sunday hits. These were Sunday movies that Saturday or Sunday movies that independent stations ran, because they were cheap. They were, they could be filled 2 hours easily. So because that was a hit, and because Babylon 5 was kind of starting up and paving the way, Hercules, in a way, kind of was paving the way for Saturday afternoon TV, syndication, and it was doing its own thing. And with that, you had Xena come into play as a spin-off. And here is Hercules and Xena and Babylon 5 kind of paving the way for syndication, or independent syndication TV. And even though Star Trek was the big juggernaut, here was these smaller folks getting bigger and bigger and more of a fan base. And even now, though people gun for like Buffy and Angel and the rest of them, but Hercules, Xena, and Babylon 5 especially, tend to get overlooked and become underrated. As per Farscape, Farscape in its own right is awesome. It's great. I agree with the TikToker with everything she says, and in regards to what it did and Henson, but with what at this time with the Sci-Fi Channel, Sci-Fi Channel in roughly 98, maybe 97, 98, was starting to get its own original program. I think the only thing original Sci-Fi Channel had at the time might have been Mystery Science Theater 3000, but beyond that, there was nothing really notable. It had a lot of sci-fi TV reruns, like Lost in Space. It might have had Star Trek. It might have had Doctor Who at one point. It might have had Twilight Zone. It might have had, all these sci-fi programs during the time that it was rerunning constantly. And therefore, when Farscape came along, it became a Sci-Fi Channel original. Kind of like what, in today's terms, what would be Netflix original, and Apple TV originals, and so forth and so on, or Amazon originals. What you see today with a lot of streaming networks was happening at Sci-Fi at this time. So, and at this time, during this time frame, Showtime didn't want Stargate SG-1 anymore. Whether it was getting low ratings or what have you. So Sci-Fi Channel picked up SG-1, Stargate SG-1, and therefore it was starting to get the sci-fi audience and grow. But the sad part is with Stargate SG-1 is, as much as it might be a good TV show in its own right, a lot of places nowadays, including the streaming services like Vudu, maybe Hulu, Vudu, and the rest of them will show you the TV variants of the first 2 or 3 seasons, but not the Showtime variants. I think at this time, like there was the Outer Limits, a reboot of the original Outer Limits in the early 2000s. You won't see the Showtime variants, which had a lot more graphic effects in regards to. It had a lot more gore. It might have had a little bit more gore, a little bit more at times, if called for, nudity. And you won't see any of that in a lot of the streaming aspects because it moved to a syndicated TV show. Therefore, and because it moved to syndication, all the excess blood and gore and nudity had to be cut out. And that's kind of sad to see. But in regards to that, but still, it carved away. It made Sci-Fi Channel more popular. So we got things, and they took a lot of chances with like Battlestar Galactica reboot and a lot of other TV shows. Some succeeded, some didn't. The ones that succeeded are Battlestar Galactica, Stargate Atlantis. Farscape was a success for a good many years. Just that during a time they got, I think, a new CEO, which had a problem with sci-fi, and they were the CEO of the Sci-Fi Channel, which was stupid, and meaning they were kind of canceling. Like Farscape was one. They hated. You didn't see, like at that time you had a race car type, or I think during this time it was like the Fast and Furious type of ordeal coming out. So they had a show similar to that on Sci-Fi Channel, and because that might have been a success for a season or two, and the person in charge of the Sci-Fi Channel was like, no, we don't want sci-fi on our Sci-Fi Channel. And they went through this whole rebranding and all that, and with all these sci-fi, independent, low-budget sci-fi movies. But I want to say stuff like Babylon 5 and BSG, Battlestar Galactica, paved the way for the Sci-Fi Channel. But where I'll give the TikToker credit is there has been a thing where one has kind of given fuel to the other and vice versa. I'll probably admit that. Meaning, we've seen in the past where when one thing is giving popularity and shows that we're craving new content or different content, it's giving popularity to something else. Meaning, where I initially thought she was wrong, she could be right, meaning she was given, due to Farscape's success, and might have given additional success to Hercules, Xena, Babylon 5. And as so vice versa. So we both can be right as well as both can be wrong. What do you think about there? Are you a fan of Farscape? You let me know your thoughts. Do you agree with what she says? If you're Babylon 5, do you agree with what she says? Do you agree with what I say? Put your discussions down below and let me know, because I'm interested in what your thoughts are. And if you like this video, hit that like button. If you like what you see on this channel and want to see more discussions like this, hit that subscribe button. Check out my podcast below. Yes, it's a new day, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn this off, and I'm going to edit this video and post it up either today or tomorrow for all of you to enjoy. I'm the Reverend Godfather. I am out. Take care.